We're going to be talking a little bit about tenderloin, how to cut it down, what to look for whenever you're buying it and purchasing, how to cook it, water bath cooking, and how to make a nice little sauce to complement it really well as well. So first what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the tenderloin, and we're going to break one out. I went ahead and I grabbed a tenderloin from the store. And what you're looking for is not to have too much purge, which means a bunch of the blood coming out of the tenderloin itself. There's no breaks, air pockets, or anything like that. The other deal you're going to do is you're trying to look for the right piece of meat. Okay, so there's only 3 different kinds of ratings, right? And if you look on the back, there is a stamp, and it's by the USDA. So you have USDA Select, you have USDA Choice, and you have USDA Prime. Those are the 3. Now I would go with Choice or above, unless you're cooking any type of stews or anything like that. You can use Select. We're going to go ahead and put on some gloves. Anytime I'm eating prepping chicken or prepping meat or getting the fingers all messed up, I just put on a pair of gloves. Get a decently sharp knife. A lot of people, whenever they have knives, they buy whatever knife they want. It's best to have sharp, because usually what happens is when you make the mistake, because it is not sharp, you end up cutting yourself, and we don't want to do that today. So you also have a steel. You can have a steel, and the metal on a steel actually has to be stronger than the knife itself. A lot of people don't understand that. So when you have Japanese blades or German blades or anything like that, where you have folded over metal, they're very, very strong. So you actually have to get and spend the money on the proper steel, so it actually does, it's not sharpening, it's homing. It's recalibrating the steel. Just use a 45-degree angle, you're going to hear that wonderful noise. And you just want to do about 6-7 times. It's just like I said, it's homing in the blade, it's not to sharpen the blade. Pop this open real quick. We're just going to go ahead and cut the plastic. Always cut away from you, never cut towards you, so that you don't have any problems on cutting yourself. I'm going to go ahead and hold this over so we can get some of this blood out. Now, buying it like this, it's about $9 a pound. When you buy it cut at the store, it's about $20 a pound. So the leftover meats that you can get from this, you can use it for making a Marsala sauce if you like to add it to it. We're going to go ahead and start. You have a chain that's on here. So we're going to look at this. And you want to get some of this membrane off the tenderloin. We're going to start opening it up. And this is not hard at all, but there's a chain on here. And in this chain, you can cut the little pieces of meat out and save some of it, but you also have silver skin in there, and I'm going to explain what the silver skin is in just a little bit. Then we can go ahead and we can start using the blade, cut upwards. And then you also have little parts. Now fat's pretty good, because fat's going to melt, and that's what's going to make some of that flavoring. So you don't want to rip all that off, and you're going to see that this is fat right here, but this is silver skin. And we're going to come over to the silver skin of this, and you're going to put the knife underneath, and see how that's tough? I'm even going up with the blade and can't cut through it. So when this is in your meat, and that's what sometimes the restaurants, if they don't catch that, whenever you're going this way, you're actually cutting through the fat. This part is turning into the silver skin, which is that tough piece. It's almost like steel. So you want to cut that part off, and then you can go up at an angle, and once you get to the right part, it'll just cut through the fat piece, so you're not cutting off all the good stuff. Okay. Like I said, that's not really silver skin. Some of that is a little bit. So we're just going to go ahead and get rid of that. All the rest is going to be fat and marbling throughout that. So the bigger pieces right here, that's a lot of piece missing. We can go ahead and get rid of that. And then we can start actually with cutting down your tenderloin. Okay? So right here, if you cut down a little piece, save that for later, like I said, for scraps or something, then you can start cutting your nice pieces of steak. So you can cut whatever size. You can go if you have your little child, then you got the dad, and you're just going to keep going down, cutting beautiful center cuts. All that center cut piece of meat right there, and all this marbling and everything, that's what's grating this type of piece of meat. And then you use that little end piece, like I said, for stewed meat or anything else. Same thing over here. You can still get a couple pieces out of this middle part. It won't, if you cut, I said use that, and then you have this nice still fillet type shape. And there you go. So instead of buying each steak at the store for $20 a pound for a cut, you can get 4 really nice steaks, 4 smaller steaks. You can feed the whole family. The next thing that we're going to talk about, shaping. If you're going to go into shaping a steak, you're going to see that the steak actually has grains that go up and down, right? And a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to cook it faster, I'm going to push down on it. But when you push down on it, it's making it wave. So the heat is not going through the steak properly. So whenever you're cooking, you're actually taking a longer time to cook it. And the heat, whenever you form a steak, it's going to be more tender when you cook it if you shape it the proper way and you're seasoning the proper way. So going into the seasoning aspect, I use simply salt and pepper. Sea salt, cafe ground black pepper, and what I do is 6 inches above. I always do salt first, pepper second. Salt sticks better for the first layer. And you're going to go 6 inches above and just kind of let it rain on there. You're not going for tiger stripes or anything else. The bigger the surface area, the more seasoning you want to do. If it's a really thin steak, you want to go lighter on the seasoning because then you're going to overwhelm it. So we got a nice thick piece of steak, and when you bite into it, you want that seasoning from the top to match everything throughout. So we're going to go ahead and season the top. Get a little pat, but you notice that the whole surface is all the same. Flip that little guy over. And it just rains right on top. Then you were ready to cook. I have a little bit different way of cooking, and this is really awesome for the family. This is called sous vide. I've actually purchased a sous vide and I wanted to try it out for many purposes. One, never going to overcook a steak, right? 2, you always have that family member that's running late, and I'll get more into detail once we get over there and start this up. So it's going to be simple. I actually have the app on my phone, and this will help out because you can do a bunch of things around doing this, which we're going to go into a topping for one of the steaks. So we're going to go into my app, which is a sous vide Julie is the one that I use, and it's pretty simple. I'll actually show you. You go into your phone, right, and you're going to go ahead and click whatever steak you're going to do. We're going to go into a nice cut of steak. You're going to set your temperature, which they're going to say their favorite's medium rare, or you can do rare. Now keep in mind, you're going to sear this afterwards, so it's either going to sear it fast or you're going to sear it and it's going to go up 1 temperature. So I usually go down 1 temperature from what I'm doing it, so I usually use the rare setting and then I go ahead and sear it real quick. So if you want medium, I'll probably go with mid-rare, and then you're searing it and you're going up. So for instance, we're just going to go ahead and start. You're going to press just this fresh or frozen, because obviously if we have a smaller family, we're going to freeze some of these items. So it does give you the option. So we do about 1 inch thick. We're going to start the Julie, and it's on. So now we're going to go into actually cooking the steak, which is going to be very simple and kind of mind-blowing. You just take a simple Ziploc bag if you like to. This is the easiest way to do it. You can cryovac it if you like. And there have been many different ways. I've been playing with this for a while. Either you can season and sear it first, rare, and then finish it, or you can just do it without seasoning, or so on. This is the best way that I came up with of doing this particular item. So basically you do salt and pepper, and you do a decent amount of it, right? You go ahead and you try not to get it on the sides of the bag. Go ahead and put it on the bottom part of the bag. And then what we're looking for is you could put butter, you could put garlic, you could put thyme, and all those flavors are going to magnify through every bite of the steak whenever you do it. I'm just trying to show you the basics right now, and then you could play with it at home with whatever you like. Try to get all of the air out of the bag. The best way to kind of do that, especially with the Ziploc bag, is that when you come over to the water, when you start dropping the steak down in there, see how the air starts actually coming out of the bag? That's going to be the best way to get most of the air out of the bag, unless you're going to put straw on the side and try to suck the air out and so on. So then you want to go ahead and try to Ziploc it and don't let any water inside, and then it's just going to float in there. And it said that it takes an hour. So during that hour, say you just got home, you just got done home with the kids, you still need to take a shower, you need to walk the dog, you need to do whichever. This is the perfect time to do all that. So, or you could start going ahead and mise en placing another recipe, which we're going to do a Marsala sauce to complement this really well. All right, so we're going to go into a simple Marsala. I love to use shiitake mushrooms because They're actually a really good mushroom. They're not overpowering and they're not bland either. And this is about 10 ounces of shiitake mushrooms. They are sliced already, obviously. Then I also use, I don't use regular butter. I actually use clarified butter, or as you can call it also, ghee, I think if it's the right terminology. Don't be mad at me if it's not. I'm not really good with this. But what it is basically separating the butter, and you're separating the fat content and anything that's kind of the saltiness and everything. It's going to go down to the bottom, and then the top is going to be clear. And what's cool about this is you can actually put this out room temperature for 30 days and it won't go bad. So that you can actually leave it out. It stays kind of like a buttery consistency, but it's also a little bit more good for you to eat. If you're dieting, this, that, or anything else is the perfect thing to cook with. Then we have shallots. Shallots is awesome because it's that middle between like a sweet onion and garlic, and it has both components inside. So I use shallots on a lot of my cooking, and it brings out like a rich buttery flavor as well. Simple sea salt, cafe ground black pepper, thyme. We're just going to put a couple sprigs, and we have the Marsala wine, heavy cream, and then we're going to go with a little bit of beef broth. The other thing about ghee and clarified butter is that it doesn't smoke, which is actually pretty cool. So it doesn't overly smoke this area, but we still will get smoked by adding all the other ingredients because the fat content's out of it. We are going to use 10 ounces of the shiitake mushrooms, right? So 10 ounces of shiitake mushrooms. We're going to use a 1/3 cup of the shallots, which are right here. We're going to use 2 teaspoons of sea salt, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, right here. Just have everything all mise en place. That just means getting it all ready together. You're going to do a couple sprigs of thyme. I leave it like this just because you can pull this out easier after you're done cooking instead of all the little pieces and actually getting in your teeth and so on. The Marsala wine I use is not sweet and it's not dry. It's actually right in the middle. So you got the best of both worlds. Now the whole cooking aspect for that is use sweet for desserts and use dry for regular cooking with entrees. So we have the Marsala wine off to the side, and that's a 1/2 cup. We also have 1 cup of beef broth right here, and you can find that anywhere. All these items you can find anywhere, local places, whichever you want. Nothing really special. And then we also have about a 1/3 cup of heavy cream to add at the end to make it nice and creamy. So this pan is already getting nice and hot. Since we're not cooking with fire, a lot of the terminology is medium to high heat. So what I started out with is number 8 on my oven. Now your ovens are going to be completely different, so you just got to kind of play with it. And I'm sure if you've cooked on it before, you understand what's too hot, what's not hot enough, where you kind of get your simmering point, which will be all the way on 2 or low, and we'll go from there. So we're going to go ahead, and we already heated the pan, so it's a little bit easier to transition. We're going to add a little bit of the butter, and see what I mean by the butter. It's hot, but it's not, you know, getting all the smoke everywhere, which is nice. You're going to go ahead and we're going to add the mushrooms. And mushrooms, it looks like a lot right now, but it really isn't. It shrinks down to about half the size. We're going to mix in the shallots. So we're going to put in the shiitake mushrooms. We're going to add the shallots that we were talking about. And like I said, it's a lot easier when it's all mise en place. So all you got to do is add it as you go. So you're not cutting it and then, oh my God, I need to catch up and cook, and the mushrooms are burning, etc. Everything's nice and ready and ready to go. We're going to go ahead and add our salt. And like I said, you want to kind of get everything all over the place, just so it's not cubing up or not breaking up. It's all over everything when you do the seasoning. It's not zigzagged. It's going to be naturally incorporated pretty well. We're going to take a couple sprigs at a time, just kind of mix it in. Aromatics are going to go through the mushroom and hold pretty well. So we just want to kind of cook that for a little bit and let it sit. So we're going to let this sit for about 4 to 5 minutes. So we're just going to kind of cook it, mix it up every once in a while. Don't let just one part of it cook. It looks like it absorbed most of that butter. So like I said, I didn't really give how much butter you use. It's just kind of as needed. Just kind of keep it wet. And a little bit more. Like I said, medium to high heat. It's not burning anything. It's just getting a nice caramelization on the mushrooms from the butter. See how that thyme is staying nice and just in there? It's just the aromatics just trying to go into the mushrooms and mix in the flavor profile. It's going to be real easy just to pick those out afterwards. The only thing that you're going to worry about too is if you are cooking at home and you're cooking with fire, because Marsala wine is actually flammable, obviously. So it does catch a pretty nice flame, especially when the plate is hot. So you just want to be careful with that as well. You're going to give it about 4 to 5 minutes. Mushrooms are looking great, nice and golden. Still a couple of them that are just a little bit white. So we're going to let that cook just a little bit more down. So the biggest thing with the Marsala is actually when you add it. Go ahead and add it now. It's all nice and in there. It's going to bubble up. You're going to put it on high heat, kind of get some of that out of there. You're cooking out the alcohol content because you want the flavoring from the Marsala wine. You don't want the flavoring from the alcohol. That's why when it's boiling and it's cooking, you're getting out that flavor. So now that we see that it's kind of getting about halfway gone, we're going to turn down the heat to about half. So put it on medium. We're going to mix this in. See how it's absorbing into the mushrooms really well? That's when you're going to add your beef broth. Now the beef broth, you're going to want to bring it to a simmer and then let it sit for a little bit just to cook down about half. So it's not so watery, so it's not just going to be pouring it over the steak. You want to have this kind of thicken up, and it'll naturally thicken up because it's going to be sucked into the mushrooms. And then when we add the heavy cream is really going to just make it nice and creamy and rich, and then it's also going to thicken it up just a little bit more. Now that it's at a nice boil, we're going to turn it down to simmer. So we'll put out like a number 2 on my flat top over here, and we'll get that down to a simmer so it reduces a little bit more. Then we're going to add the cream, but we could get these steaks going at the same time. Like I said, it is done, and then pretty much what you do. I have one more cooking that we were cooking earlier, but these 2 are done at this time. So we're going to take these out. We'll take them over to the foil, and I like to give it another little bit of seasoning. You're going to have a little bit of liquid in there. Now, as you can tell, it's very tender. All the way through is all the same type of temperature. And all we're going to go for is that nice golden sear now. What we're going to do is salt and pepper like we did before. And we're not trying to add a lot. We're just trying to add just a little bit because it already is seasoned. And the thing that's cool about sous vide, it magnifies the flavor of whatever you're putting around it or on it all the way through the steak. And then we're going to go ahead and put the pan on high just to get it up to heat. And while we're doing that, obviously we can see that the sauce got reduced down really nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the cream. Like I said, the cream, something I just kind of adds richness, adds a little bit of flavor. We're still, how it made it a little bit more watered again, we're still going to reduce it. So it'll still thicken up real nice when we pour it over the steak after we're done searing the steaks. So we're going to turn that back up just a little bit, probably about half, like we said. We're going to bring it to a nice simmer. I'm pretty sure this is going to be hot enough. Let's go ahead and try that out. Yeah, it's getting hot, so we're good. Like I said, you don't see the smoke and everything, but it did bubble up pretty well. We're going to go ahead and try to see if we do put one of the steaks. You can put it in a little early, it doesn't matter, still get the sear either way. But yeah, it's ready. That's what we're looking for. Now what's beautiful is you cut back to that Marsala sauce while this is searing. Beautiful, look at this. It's thickening up real nice. See how watery it was before? Now it's thickening up, so it's got a little bit more to do. Now you can always do like the little spoon test, if you will, and what you do is you go ahead and you put it in the sauce and you flip it over and see on the back of the spoon if it coats it really well, and then if you take your finger and we'll go like this, and it doesn't go back in, it means that your sauce is actually pretty nice. It's nice and thick and it sticks to the spoon, so it's going to stick to your items that you're making as well. You want to get a nice caramelization on the steak, so you want it to sit just for a little bit, get nice and golden brown. Look how beautiful that looks. And use this as like a little sitting. So now that we're gonna turn down the heat all the way on the Marsala sauce, and we're gonna let the residual heat from the pan just kind of cook it the rest of the way. We already did the sauce test, so it's got enough thickness to it, and this will still keep kind of cooking a little bit, obviously, just from the residual heat from the pan from sitting in its spot. And you can just pick up that whole piece of thyme, get that out of the sauce. A couple sprigs, I know we had a couple in there. It's not going to hurt to get some on top of your steak either. You just throw it off the side when you're done. Steak is looking great. Look at that color on there. That's what we're looking for. All right, so we're just going to bring this over. I'll put one of the steaks on the plate. You can let it rest for a little bit. Now you can get clever on all the different sides. It's really up to you. I'm not huge in asparagus, but obviously my wife loves asparagus. So I add a little bit of goat cheese and some bacon to the outside and bake them, and that kind of makes it a little bit more ready for me. Take a couple tablespoons, because you can actually use some of this mushroom obviously as a side when it comes down to the steak. So, and we still have quite a bit left. So the recipe that we gave you, I would say you split that up, probably about 5 to 6 guests, depending on how much Marsala, or if people don't like mushrooms, or if they just like the sauce. And we'll cut into that steak. Beautiful, from top to bottom, 100% perfect.